Coming up on the marketplace, in October, British Airways will move the Accra-London flight from Heathrow to Gatwick, despite backtracking on its move earlier in February. Meanwhile, ranking member for Transport in Parliament has called for sanctions against BA on this move.
I would have said that let's boycott Heathrow, let's boycott British Airways outright.
Also, Ghana's national carrier to be called Air Ghana, as Egypt Air, the main partner, seeks more than $300 million in aid from the Egyptian government. We have details on this. Plus, research identifies delays as primary root cause of administrative corruption in Ghana. We have all these stories and more coming up shortly after this break. Hello and welcome. My name is Charles Aite. We begin with the aviation sector because passengers traveling from Accra to London should expect to land at London Gatwick Airport instead of Heathrow effective the end of October. Passengers departing from London to Accra must also originate their travel from Gatwick. Now, this follows British Airways' resolve to move the London-Accra-London flights from Heathrow to Gatwick at the end of October this year, despite suspending the change in airport for the Ghana market a few weeks ago. The change in airport has already been effected on the airline's online booking system. But how did we get here? About a month ago, British Airways announced that effective March 28, 2021, its London-Accra-London flights will operate out of the Gatwick Airport instead of Heathrow. Of course, the Aviation Ministry, which was not notified of this decision, then called for a meeting with the airline to discuss the issue and, of course, to make it clear the decision to object to such a change coming on the back of what the Aviation Ministry described as a similar unilateral decision taken by British Airways in the past, which were unfavorable to Ghanaian passengers. Well, fast-track today, ranking member on Roads and Transport Committee, Kwame Agboja, is asking government to sanction British Airways if they proceed with this decision. Mr. Agboja observed that in spite of assurances by management of British Airways to abandon the idea, information available is that BA from October 1 will carry out on its plans, as I've already stated. Let's listen to him as he spoke to my colleague, Parker Wilson.
Ghana Airways used to fly directly to Heathrow. Of course, Ghana Airways doesn't exist any longer. And so we had British Airways being the only airline flying a direct route from Kotoka into Heathrow. That monopoly has led to a situation where in the past few years, British Airways have been showing bad faith with Ghana and their Ghanaian customers. In the past, we were flying into Heathrow Terminal 5, which is the flagship airport in the UK. Why? Because it's the airport with the best distribution in terms of, okay, I'm going to Atlanta. When you get to Heathrow, connecting your flight and other things, and the way it's been organized with a little bit of walking around or underground train, you will be in your new terminal. So it was, shopping, everything was okay. Before we realized, British Airways says Ghanaian customers can't fly into Terminal 5. They moved us to Terminal 3. That also generated an argument and other things, but unlike Nigerians, they feel that, or they will talk about it and leave it, and they will do that, they'll go away. Are you aware that when Britain decided to leave the EU, one of the first countries in Africa that they quickly came and did a new trade deal is Ghana? In fact, many Ghanaians are not even aware that the Ghanaian government and the British government have gone to sign trade deals. What is the content? We don't know. Because we are at that level of diplomacy. Just in December last year, British Airways started saying that they are moving Ghana, their flight into UK, from Heathrow completely to Gatwick.
So now from the Terminal 3 and Heathrow?
Yes, from Terminal 5, we were moved to Terminal 3. Now we are completely out of Heathrow. The Ghana government did the right thing by rejecting that proposal that we are not tolerating that. They attempted in December and January this year to explain, and we didn't take it. Why? Because other African countries are still not even in Terminal 3, are still at Terminal 5. Nigeria, how do you call it, Kenya, and all of them are flying there. Is it the case that whenever the British Airways feel that there's somebody to mess around with, you can do that with Ghana and then nothing would happen? And I am saying that they backtracked somewhere December by saying that they are putting on hold the move from Terminal 3 to Gatwick. Okay. But behind the scenes, they've gone ahead to operationalize that. If you were to try to book a flight from Accra into London from 31st October, you would automatically be routed to Gatwick. What it means is that they have effected that at the blind side of the Ghana government and their Ghanaian customers, and that's very bad faith. And I noticed Ghana government threatened that there will be reciprocal action from them. I am encouraging government to go back to use the diplomatic channels to try to address this, or let's take some action. Sadly, there's no direct flight from Ghana, from Accra to Heathrow. I would have said that let's boycott Heathrow. Let's boycott British Airways. Outright, let's boycott listen. If we had any international airport that is worth that, would have said relocate them as well to maybe Tamale or something. Let's see how it works. And I think that Ghanaian customers, the Ghana government shouldn't take this, because this is show of pure bad faith with Ghana
and we shall be following this closely to give you updates as and when we do have them. But let's still stay with the aviation industry, because Egypt Air is looking to expand in Africa as air traffic recovers from the pandemic, even as the carrier seeks more than $300 million in additional government aid. The state-owned airline plans to help develop a new Ghanaian carrier and is weighing a joint venture with a Sudanese airline, according to Rojdi Zakaria, the Chief Executive Officer of Egypt Air. Now, the new airline, likely called Air Ghana, will probably begin operations in May. Even as we await this, Shawn Mendes, an aviation expert, has warned that Ghana should never partner with a rival.
Well, there's definitely going to be some level of conflict. Whether that's acceptable to the government of Ghana or not is to be determined. Egypt Air itself is a government-owned airline. So while you may not be having, you may be saying that the government of Ghana will not be interfering in the airline's operations. If Egypt Air is your strategic partner, that means the government of Egypt is going to be calling the shots. Now, is that acceptable to Ghana? I don't know. That's something for the parliamentarians, for the elected representatives, for the ministers, for the president to make that determination. Egypt Air itself is in very dire financial conditions right now. They are in need of a government bailout to continue operating themselves. So even if there were to be a deal, it is not as though Ghana will be going into partnership with with someone who had all the resources. They would be dependent on the government of Egypt's handouts, effectively, to make this project run. So there are questions to be asked. I don't know the answers to it, but definitely I would be interested to see the answers to those questions before I can either back it or say it's something that probably isn't going to work.
And that's Shawn Mendes, an aviation expert, there on his thoughts on Egypt. Away from the aviation space, delays have been identified as the root cause of administrative corruption in the country. That's according to research findings by the Ghana Integrity Initiative and the Private Enterprise Federation on using service delivery charters to promote business integrity in the country. From the perspective of the private sector, the delays are attributable to sluggishness and incompetence of mostly staff, bureaucracy, among others. Similar trends were seen in the public sector, though lack of resources were a major issue in the public sector. Some of the public institutions surveyed were the DVLA, the Registrar General's Department, the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as the Passport Office. Let's now break it all down. Joining us via Zoom is Clara Berry Kasati, who is a lawyer and lecturer at the Gimpa Law School. We shall also be having Nana Osei-Bones, to the president of the Private Enterprise Federation. Gentlemen and ladies, we're so grateful that Kasati from the University of Ghana, as well as the president of the Private Enterprise Federation. Gentlemen and ladies, we're so grateful that you joined us for this particular engagement. I want to start off with you, Mr. Bonsu. What exactly remains your input when it comes to using service delivery charters to promote business integrity in the country? If you could kindly unmute so we could hear you better.
I said the name is Nana Osei Bonsu, not Bonsu. But the essence of the federation's investigation and endeavor into this exercise is because the private sector is required to perform under certain regulations. Sometimes they're oblivious of the regulation. Sometimes the regulators themselves don't have capacity.
Sure.
And they don't listen to whatever is required on the private sector. So at least they become comfortable and procure the services. So what we had done previously with LUPSA, land use and spatial planning and others, was to find out what their difficulties, their challenges, that these regulatory institutions need to do to empower themselves to be able to administer what is the services they're supposed to give to private sector. Now, for the private sector, knowledge of and information is critical. So if they don't know it and they don't have the way of getting that information, they're not going to be able to meet the requirements. We engage the services of the lady lawyer that you have there, Lady Cassati, and some other players to assist us to identify the challenges by the regulatory institutions. Sometimes it's capacity, sometimes it's resource, sometimes it's just that the law doesn't support that. By so doing, we are able to empower private sector to identify what they need to know to make sure that this service charters that these institutions are supposed to use to administer the regulations are so succinct that nobody else can do otherwise with it. Now, you mentioned corruption. Corruption has been one of the basic things that plague private sector when you're getting licenses, certification, and other forms of permits. So when the regulatory institution doesn't have the capacity, when they don't know what to do, then the private sector is left wanting. Now, sometimes they don't have capacity, as I said earlier. Let me give you one institution which is supposed to have 50 inspectors in 2 inspectors per each district.
All right.
They only have 50 inspectors for the whole nation. How many regions do we have? How many districts do we have? So assuming the private sector is seeking the permit from this institution, they will have to sometimes provide the kind of vehicle for them to go see the inspection, the location for the inspection, and otherwise. And by so doing, it creates some kind of unsavory kind of activity.
All right.
Now, this time around, we engage.
If we could bring in Lady Cassati there, because considering your legal backing, we do know that matters of corruption are mostly issues that, of course, conflict the regulatory framework when it comes to legalities. But having read this particular report, having understood the origins of corruption, which, surprised to say, stems from inefficiencies at the public sector, where do you fix your concern regarding the import of this report?
The concern is that if the real intention is to deal with corruption or to tackle corruption in the public service delivery system, then yes, we have to focus on the root cause of the corruption, which, as indicated, has been delays. So the main motivation for corruption from the private sector has been to avoid the delays, because the cost of the delays on them is far more outweighs the cost of the bribe that they will pay. So the motivation usually has been the delays, which then means that if we want to tackle corruption, we must see how to tackle the unnecessary delays so that public service is delivered efficiently to the private sector. That would be a key way to addressing corruption in the public sector.
But beyond that, finally, what do you proffer as the suitable recommendations? You've stated that we need to deal with matters of delays, but moving forward, how do we consolidate recommendations to ensure that corruption within the public sector is a thing of the past? 3 things.
All that we have recommended can be summed up in 3 things. For this particular project, as Nana was indicating, we were focusing on one is the use of service delivery charters. Service delivery charters, if effectively implemented, is able to address a lot of the challenges that give rise to corruption. One is information. If you have an effective service delivery charter, it contains all the information that the private sector needs. So there is a one-stop shop document they can go to, and they know what is required. It indicates the fees, it indicates the timelines, it indicates complaint mechanisms that must be enforced, which also must go hand in hand with sanctions when public officers delay in the provision of services. So using the service delivery charter, we ensure transparency. There is the right to information that would come with it. And most importantly, it will also lead to change of attitudes because it seeks to re-engineer the focus of public services to service delivery, people-centered. Because then you know that you have an obligation to provide efficient services rather than power to exercise over people, as well as the people also seeing that they have a right to efficient service delivery. It's not a favor being done them. And not just that they have a right, the mechanisms in a service delivery charter allow the citizenry to hold accountable the various public officers in those institutions. So it makes the public officer focus on service delivery, as well as making the private sector or the general public empowered to be able to hold accountable and ensure that there is transparency, because part of the issues that result in corruption is lack of transparency, lack of the right information, who does what. All of these ones, an effective implementation of a service delivery charter is able to cater, in addition to automation of services, as well as definitely resourcing the particular agencies to provide the services that we look at. One of the recommendations in that line is that we have to take another look at some of the legal provisions that allow some of the entities that the fees paid to them go to the consolidated fund. I think we need a discussion around that area so that some of the fees, we look at the fee fixing system in service delivery charters and ensure that the fees are retained in-house so that they are able to address some of the basic needs of the agency. For example, paper. There is no reason why you should go to a public agency and then the issue there is paper, and there is a whole bureaucratic process to follow to be able to get money to buy the paper. So we have to revisit the fee fixing and fee retention system in the country. Well noted.
Look, as a team, we're so grateful for your input. So are we grateful to the president of the Private Enterprise Federation who joined us earlier. You're still watching The Marketplace. We have more stories coming up after this break to stay. And of course, you're welcome to The Marketplace with me, Charles Aite. We're now going to start off with a discussion because this coming days, we shall be having some partnerships with Access Bank together with Graphic Business on how best we could navigate the path for SMEs to remain competitive in this particular market. And thankfully, we're joined by the key stakeholders that are going to be making all these things happen for us this particular week. We're going to be starting off with the gentleman from Graphic Business. So if you could introduce us yourself shortly and tell us the import of this particular partnership in the coming days.
Okay, my name is Theophilus Yate. I'm the editor, Graphic Business.
Great.
We are Graphic Communications Group, we believe that as dominant media group in Ghana, we should look beyond just the selling of newspapers, just the core business, and see how we can partner very strong organizations to generally help our businesses, help everybody along the value chain. And we thought that this is something that we need to do with Access Bank. Access Bank, because Access Bank is one of the biggest banks on the market. They are multinational and they have the expertise. And we thought that after the pandemic, I don't know whether we are still after the pandemic or we are still in the pandemic, but
we're still in the pandemic.
Still in the pandemic, we realized that a lot of businesses have gone under the water, under the
Yes.
bridge, and a lot of them have not been able to survive. Some are struggling. So this is the best time for us to partner, assess who has the expertise, who has all that it takes to help these businesses navigate through the pandemic. Not just that, but also move from the level that they are now to
a more global level.
Thank you.
But speaking of Access, we have two officials from Access Bank. If you could introduce yourself, I want to start off with you. We know that Access Bank, you've done so much, from the corporate social responsibility to the very engagement with businesses, helping SMEs grow. What is the import of this particular partnership? What exactly should we be expecting from you?
Thank you very much. My name is Kafu Ibimpe, Group Head, Business Banking. Okay, essentially what we're trying to achieve is to achieve change and economic transformation.
Great.
What we've realized is that these SMEs, they occupy a very critical place in our economy. So we are looking at how best we can contribute to their growth, their success. So essentially what we are going to do is to expose them to other critical tools and the wide opportunities that we have on the digital space so that they will be able to take advantage of that. We're going to offer them what we have as enablers to enable them get to that level. We know that for them to remain competitive at global level, they need to be innovative.
Exactly.
And they need to take advantage of numerous opportunities. That is why we are organizing this one. We'll give them pointers as to where they will get help, how they will be able to start migrating to this space so that they can take advantage of the opportunities.
All right. So we know that this is going to be live on Joy FM and, of course, across our platforms. But I want to end with you because we're going to be having the theme, around boosting SME resilience with digital solutions. Why this theme, and how do we find, the direction when it comes to helping SMEs find themselves boosting their resilience through digital trends?
Thank you, Charles. At Access Bank and the Graphic Communication Group, we believe this is a great opportunity. Even before the pandemic came in, traditionally the SMEs don't really thrive beyond generations.
Exactly.
Especially this part of our world. And the pandemic has even made it worse. So as a bank in partnership with Graphic, we believe that there's an opportunity for us to look at our SMEs. They constitute over 80% of the businesses in our part of the world. And a lot of them are actually struggling.
Especially when 95% of them die before reaching their 5th anniversary.
Exactly. So we cannot afford to lose them. They are the backbone of the economy. So we believe this initiative that we've come up with will help them get the right tools to be able to compete. Why can't we raise the next multinational to be in Europe, to be in the Americas, to compete with the likes of them all over the world? So with this platform, we are providing them the right tools, the right technology, digitally be able to come up with the right innovation to enable them compete, enable them sell, enable them reach out to the African and the global market.
All right, gentlemen, we're so grateful that you joined us for this explanation. We're so grateful. Remember that this is going to be live on JoyNews as well as Joy FM and across our platforms on Wednesday. The Graphic Business, Access Bank, partnership with Joy Business. That's how we wrap up the marketplace. My name is Charles Aite. Many thanks for watching.